Welcome to Beyond Mom Brain, a podcast for mothers navigating every season of life. Whether you're raising little ones, supporting teens, connecting with adult children, or rediscovering yourself, you're in the right place.
My life is just so full. So full and
Just a
busy.
busy. I know I was telling my husband, I was like, she is doing I remember that you were doing one in Scotland, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just so amazing. I said, one day I want to go to one of your retreats.
If we could find, collectively, we could find some type of retreat center that has that kind of accommodation,
Mhm.
then I don't have to go to Europe. And that makes it more affordable for most people because you pay for the retreat, but you also have to get yourself to Scotland
Right.
and back.
Right. But that would be cool. That was like, I've never been to another country. I've barely been to other states.
Yeah.
So that was for me, that was kind of the intriguing part of it. Like,
Okay.
to not only attend one of your retreats, but to be able to do it in another country,
Another country.
specifically in Scotland, was really interesting to me.
Well, and I'm already putting that together for the spring of 2027, another one at the same
Nice.
retreat
Okay.
center. And there is one woman from Georgia who has never traveled, and so she was, we've been a little hand holding to, well, so that suggestions of getting to the airport, what's the closest international airport, and how to navigate, because she just really
Yeah.
doesn't have a clue. And I said to her, well, my husband's going to drive me. And I said, no. Just get someplace where there's a shuttle. Usually there are shuttles that go out of the hotels or things. And I
Yeah.
said, he's going to be a wreck. And he's going to be nervous, and he's going to be parking, and he's going to add to your nervousness. And this is my sense for most
Yeah.
people like that, is take the shuttle. It drops you off at the door that goes in where the gate is. You just pay attention to yourself, not his nervousness.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because I can see my husband being like that too. Like, but
Well, they're going to miss you. They're going to worry about you. They're going to
right.
fuss, and maybe you want to get there 2 hours early just so you're not going to miss it. And he's going to drive you at the last 10 minutes or something.
Oh no. No, that'd be my husband, that'd be the complete opposite. My son flew. He was coming from well, before he moved, he was going to visit Indiana. And my husband was like, "No, like we live less than an hour away, about an hour away from Charlotte Douglas International Airport. So I'm very familiar with it. I actually grew up like you could hear the planes. I was,
Oh, okay.
so like no. And so he's like, you better get there 3 hours early. I mean, it's a massive airport.
Mm.
And he had never, I've been on a plane before. He had never been on a plane. So he was like, you and your ADHD. And he actually ended up missing his flight and having to go a later flight just because, I mean, he went early, but he had never been there to navigate through the airport before.
Right.
And, like we can only go so far in.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, luckily the first time I flew, my sister and my stepmother, they went like as far as they could with me, and I was in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I say luckily because I wasn't familiar with like, you can only take this size of
Liquid.
like yeah, and so I had to give them my shampoo, my body wash and all this stuff. And so luckily like they were at a smaller airport, and so they were able to, because I wasn't flying international. So, it was a smaller airport, and they were able to go really until I went like right up in the plane almost. Now
Mm-hmm.
here at the Charlotte airport, you don't get that far. If you're, if you don't have a ticket, you don't get very far at all. So he was like completely on his own, like 23, 24 years old, never flown before. And it was like, ugh. But I mean, he got there eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like going to flying in and out of LA, Los Angeles. It's
Oh, I
just a
bet.
nightmare, and it's under construction.
Oh
I live
gosh.
Portland International is a lovely airport, easy to get to. It's big, but it's well organized. And you don't feel like you're in the middle of like a traffic jam type of thing. But
Yeah.
LAX is when I fly to California to see my sons, I fly into a smaller local airport. It's called Burbank, which is north of Los Angeles. And
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea.
yes, yeah, avoid
Already.
LAX at all costs, right? Right. So yeah, there's always my first flight I took when I was 12 years old. I flew to Europe. So that was in 1961. That's a donkey's years ago. And I flew on a propeller. It was a old not a prop jet, just a not a what they call prop jets. It was just an old four-engine propeller plane. So you couldn't go very far. We went from Chicago to Newfoundland, Newfoundland to Iceland, Iceland to Copenhagen, because that they had to refuel all the time. It was just so I've
Yeah.
been flying since I was really, really young, and it's just like for me, family, the airports. I, anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter was gonna fly to her best friend's quinceañera, and this was like 2 years ago. And she'd never flown before. She never traveled by herself. Like, well, no, that's not true. She'd flown with her sister and her father before. Um, but she never flown like traveled anywhere by herself. Obviously, she was only 15, and I was terrified. She's like,
yeah,
"Mom, kids do it all the time. Blah blah blah. They like treat you like royalty and all this kind of stuff." And I was like,
yeah.
luckily, they ended up driving.
Oh, okay.
She ended
Yeah,
up riding with her best friend's family, and they ended up driving. So I was like, whew, because
yeah.
that was stressful to me.
Well, it is, and that was the first time that my grandson, because his father lives in Oregon, and his mom they live in New Mexico.
Mm.
And last year was the first time that at 13, and he said, "I feel ready to fly by myself," because always she would accompany him, which then it doubled the expense, all of that. But she said,
Right.
"Okay." So we worked through it, walked through the whole thing, and of course at 13 he thinks he's like all grown up. But you're right, they do watch out for them. The only thing that can
Yeah.
happen is if there's like a delay in a flight or something is canceled because of weather. My friend had her 14-year-old had to spend the night with a couple of other kids that were also flying unaccompanied, and they because there was a storm and the flights got canceled, and they had to keep the kids at the airport. Because they really there's some special regulation or something about them taking children to hotel rooms.
Well, yeah, I can
Rightfully
see
so.
that.
So they
Yeah.
provided that, they provide us, there's some kind of space, and the kids were there and they made sure they were all fed and everything. But I don't know the whole regulation, but she said that's what they were told, that there's a very different kind of regulation about taking children out of the airport
Mm,
to another
makes sense.
location and to be sleeping in rooms as children.
Right.
And I was
Yeah.
thinking, like, that would make me feel a lot less nervous too if I knew that they were just kept at the airport.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's life, right? There we go. We solved all the problems in the world. Don't fly, don't have children. Avoid hotels.
Don't fly, don't have children.
Yeah.
It's
Or
that
maybe
simple.
don't have children, don't fly. I don't know. Don't fly when you're having children. We can make a kind of joke about that once in a while.
No, it's funny because my husband and I were briefly having a conversation yesterday, and just kind of like, it's one of these like things where like my ADHD brain is, yeah, I've said this before, but I feel the need because we're on the topic to bring it up again.
Mhm.
But we were talking about like, my kids and having children and stuff. Oh, I have this rocking chair, not rocking, a rocking horse, this wooden rocking horse. It was mine when I was a kid. and it's in my den. And I was just like, I've never like planned for grandchildren. You know, I know people who like, oh, one day my grandchild can inherit this, or, whatever the case. My mom and I just discussed inheriting her home like a couple years ago. I think partially because like I don't really like to talk about stuff like that because I've had so much death, that like I don't want to talk about my mother dying, but it's a conversation that, a future planning conversation that we've started having the last couple of years. And honestly, I attribute it to my husband because I don't know that I would have if he not have brought it up and say, hey, we need to start planning for her future as well, wills, and things like that. And preparing, for certain things. Does she have this in place? Does she have that? And also too, because at the time we were a lot more financially able to do so than she was. And so it just made sense, right? To help do those things. And so, but we, have this rocking chair, and I was like, I've never really been like that. Like, oh, one day maybe this can go to this person or grandkids or whatnot. And I said, that I have a very strong stance of like, my children don't have to have children if they don't want to. Like, I love my grandson, but just because I love my grandson doesn't mean my other children like have to have,
Right. That you
have to
expect an
reproduce.
expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that expectation for them. And if they want to, great. I think they'd all be great parents
Yeah.
when they're ready, but like,
I don't want to put pressure. It's really not our business.
thank you.
When
Thank you for saying that.
really, I mean, I say that sincerely. It's not your business. You might wish for, and I come from that place of I love children, and I really thought it's like would be really cool to have grandkids until my daughter was 40, and her brother was 43, and her other brother was 38. My daughter said, I'm pregnant. I'm having a baby. It's like at 40. So, I had really given up the idea even that I would be a grandma.
Yeah.
And it's like amazing, and I love it. And I would love to have had more, but it's not my business because I don't raise them. I think my sons were wise. They both have jobs that are very demanding and keep them away from home a lot of times, and they probably wouldn't have been the best available dad. I mean, they would have been great dads, but
Right.
really taking into account the truthfulness of their lifestyle. So I have one grandson. He has no cousins. He has nothing. Just this one guy who's 14 now, 14 and a half. And he's very social. I had 37. I grew up in a family from mom's side and dad's side. There were 37 of us cousins. That's a lot of cousins.
Right.
We always had people around, but Archer has just himself. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I asked my daughter, like, do you want to have more kids later? And she was like, not anytime soon. And that's okay. Like I know people, like you hear people and they're like, oh, when are you gonna give them a brother or sister and blah blah. It's like, leave her alone. Like, not just her, just people in general. And then there's people like me where they're probably like, oh, okay, like you could slow down a little bit. You've contributed quite enough children to the world.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Where I would start is the cultural, just to explore different things culturally, socially, religiously. I think there's a religious ideology that goes with some of this. Some of
Yeah.
it's economic. These are old patterns of needing to have children, the need to have children, so you've got somebody to help you in the business or help you farm the land, or the need to have children because who's going to take care of me in my old age.
Yeah.
And so that being really cautious that we don't repeat as a parent, that we don't carry that generationally, that ideology that I expect you to have children because what, and fill in the blank, whatever, or that's the purpose. I mean, sometimes I hear people, that's the purpose of marriage, that God, so they bring the religion in.
Right.
God intended you to mate for life, and that you're supposed to multiply, and they quote the Bible, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and that kind of idea, because that's still very present. And it doesn't mean it's, again, this is not about any one way being right and another way being wrong. It's about paying attention, I think, as parents and as grandparents too, paying attention to, are you participating in the perpetuation of something that you don't really even believe in, or that isn't appropriate for the times in which we live? That, do we really need, are you frozen? Oh, no. Okay.
No.
This was so perfectly still. I thought, oh,
No, I'm just listening.
So to really think about giving birth to new humans, to consider why am I doing this?
Right.
And not that there has to be the answer, the reason, but what am I, what's, is it a biological urge? Oh, my clock is ticking, that kind of thing? Or is there really a connectedness with, is this a spiritual experience? Because I do believe that it's not just about reproducing, procreating.
Yeah.
There's something really, this is the way that humans continue, but how many wounded, damaged children are there because there are parents that are incapable of caring for them? Situations where they're not able to be fed, or the parent isn't, emotionally or mentally stable. They'll just kind of pull these things in to really look at, what am I just automatically doing this? Also, do I not have access to birth control? I mean, sometimes that's a consideration.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's lack of, and I'm going to say education, but I don't mean just schooling, like being well read, being bigger knowledgeable. It's like, there are things I can do to prevent getting pregnant, but then you bring in the component of, well, I'm in a religion that says that birth control is against God's laws. So it's a really complex navigation of all the muddy waters and choppy waters and clear streams of everything that comes together to you as a person in your process of deciding to have a child. That's where I then feel like, as a parent or as a grandparent, to hold the place of wisdom, and not to say, I wished you would, or I'm glad you didn't, but just to hold maybe the questions. Have you considered this? Have you considered that? And I think a lot of women face this. I love my career, but I want to have a baby, without really considering, like, what's the price you're going to pay? Do these new little lives really benefit? I'm going to say need, but is there some deep spiritual, physical benefit that comes from a mother staying with her baby, not having it in the daycare, not sending it away to babysitters? Is there something, does the child miss something? And sometimes it's necessary. You have to go to work. You don't have a choice. But then there's the place of we just see so much dysfunction in everybody now. You wonder, like, is some of that the basis of not having good, close family ties? Or do I expect my mother, I'm going to have the baby, I'm going to go off to work, do I expect my mother to be the babysitter?
Yeah.
So to me, it's about our willingness to ask questions, ask hard questions. Am I deciding this because of a religion that I was raised in? And do I even follow that? Or do I do that because people expect me to do it? Is it because of the economy? Like, well, I'm not going to have children because I have to work. And I remember one young man said to me one time, you don't really need to teach. It's not so important to teach people about birth control. People need to be educated, because he said, if you look so often, it's in the situation of families where there isn't a lot of awareness, worldly awareness, even that there's keep having children and children and children, and you can't take care of them.
Right.
Right. And so it's so complex, and I don't know that I would say to anybody, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, do this, do that. I would say, have the conversations, talk about the reasons to and not to, and talk about the implications of what's it like. The truth, well, you know that as a mother, the real truthfulness of how challenging it is to be up all night with sick children, or to fit, how do you drive them all to ballet class, right? The reality of having a minivan, the need to have a minivan, or
right.
That all of from the mundane to the mechanical, it's a lifetime commitment. When all my children are in their 50s, that's they're not children, they're adults.
Right.
But it doesn't matter, they're still your children, and that it's not that I keep with them because they're going to care for me. That's also the other way around. Sometimes I say, don't tell me when you get back from your hang gliding because I don't want to be worried about it.
Right.
So yeah. I don't know if it's not really about answering anything. It's more about an observation. And, I got married in the 60s. I was a teenager, and you get married and you just have kids. And it never, looking back, I don't think it was ever anything that anybody talked about or
right.
Or that it was a conscious choice. Yes, I'm going to have have children, or I'm not. And then you wonder too, there's such a, I have to have a baby, and I'm going to try all sorts of means, artificial insemination, freezing the eggs, multiple, multiple births, like women that have 4, 6, 8 babies all at the same time. And then the cost of that on all levels, what does that look like? And is our drive on a personal need, I need to have a baby, I want to have a baby, is there a collective need? Is there a need in nature that overrides the individual? And I, this is maybe because my spiritual practice and the things that I teach and work with are very often really tied to nature. I use nature. Nature's universal, everybody has it. So I say, go to nature, and you watch in nature that if a dog has a big litter and she's left alone, if there are pups in her litter that are sickly or weak or not viable, she'll starve them. She'll push them out because she needs the milk to feed the ones that are healthy and strong.
Yeah.
Other animals will actually kill their young.
Yeah.
Or eat them.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that, it's like sometimes we think
not that we should do that.
Eating our young. But to really look at the fact that nature's mechanism is to keep things functioning and viable. And yes, people want to think, we're above the animals. And no, we're just different. We are still animals. We're just a different configuration. And perhaps there is an obligation to the whole that needs to be talked about. And that in that, then you also look at nature and you say, okay, we've got a male deer, let's say elk, whatever, who has a harem that he breeds every year. But he gets to the point where he's going to be challenged by another male eventually, because as he gets old or is injured or whatever, the other male comes in. They have a fight over who's going to be good to breed the females. But that's also part of that system of the viability. It's like the strength of that which is reproducing and who and so if we look at those principles that are life principles that are present in nature, and then we come back to us as humans and we say, how can I participate or not in also maintaining balance? It's like, should I really try to have a baby if we're not in a financial position to take care of it? I mean, just the
Yeah.
practicality. So that's
Yeah.
where I would, and I would say that even we just started out talking about grandkids. It's like I'm in my heart, it was like, oh, I'd love to have grandbabies, but it's for me, I would never say that to my children. It's not my business
Right.
unless I'm willing to raise. You have a baby, and then I'm going to raise it because you can't.
Right. Yeah, but no, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I can think of two instances where someone has kind of related my parenting journey to someone else, or like I've made mention in front of a family member that uh we were talking about teenagers, like teenagers having sex, and I said absolutely not. And my daughter who was in the conversation is 17, and I was like absolutely not. And or 16 or 17 at the time, absolutely not. And this other family member was like, well, you got pregnant at 14. I said, and that's exactly why I say
Right.
absolutely not.
Right.
Another instance, a friend said to me that we were talking about my stance on preventing teenage pregnancy. And she was like, well, you know, didn't your daughter just have a kid? And I was like, well, my daughter's not a teenager. First of all, she was 22 when she got pregnant, but that is still young. But at the same time, she's in her 20. You know what I mean? Like she's not a kid. She's not in high school. She's not. She has a job. She has a car. She has things. And not to say that you can't take care of a baby without those things, but for her in her situation, as well as solid family, other things in place to where she can be successful even though she's only 22. 22 is old to some people for having a baby,
Well,
but
right.
or like the ideal age, you know. Um, but I just say, my stance on things is maybe different than what people would think it is, but it is because I have been a mother at 14, 18. I was married when I had my last two kids, and that plan was to raise them, all four of my kids, in a fully stable, happy, healthy household with two parents. And we did that for a bit, but that didn't end up being the case. So I was married, and they still weren't being provided the things they needed to be provided. And so I took them out of that situation. And so it's kind of one of the things that makes me tell them, you don't have to have children if you don't want to, and don't let society make you feel like you have to. You don't have to get married. You don't have to have children. You don't have to marry someone of the opposite sex. Like, you know, I have two aunts who don't have any children, and one that had three. I have two that have gotten married, one that never has. And I think that's fabulous. I think if that's how they chose to live their lives, all three scenarios, more power to them, you know? Um, and so I don't know. I just feel like we should just let people live their lives. If they are healthy and genuinely happy, educated on the lifestyle that they choose,
Well,
who is anyone to tell them not to do that?
not a business. I mean, I think that's where we come back to. It's like we get up into other people's business because being married doesn't guarantee that you have a happy family.
Absolutely.
Not being a single mom doesn't mean that you've neglected your child.
Right. Yeah.
Choosing to, all the choices that people make, that's their business. We get the opportunity to perhaps share something from our own experience.
Right.
But not to make them wrong. A lot of times there's this preaching of this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Well, you don't know. And I really feel like often we cause division between and among ourselves, and we divide each other out because we take stands that are the extremes. You can only have sex if you're married.
Yeah.
Or if you have sex and you get pregnant, you have to get married. I mean, some of these things they don't work. And getting married, that's not getting married to somebody just because you got pregnant by them doesn't guarantee you're going to have a happily ever after family.
Absolutely.
And that, so really, I think what fails oftentimes is having the conversations and, like talking with our children about things and sharing experiences and asking questions. And, like if you're in a community that's, let's say, really, really traditionally Catholic, I'm just like, okay, so they perhaps don't, as a family, maybe that community doesn't, or as a group, doesn't support abortion.
Right.
So if you're going to have sex with a male wanting to have sex with teenage girls, high school kids having sex, and she gets pregnant, in all likelihood, the abortion isn't an option, whether it's politically or religiously correct. It's not an option because that's the way the family lives.
Right.
Then these two teenagers really have to look at that fact that it's very possible, quite likely, that you're going to be a teenage dad.
Right. Right.
And that's not going to go away.
Right.
So sometimes it's also about having conversation about the context of where we live, belief systems of people. What's our family's belief system? Is sex before marriage wrong, or is there a right and a wrong in that? But then if you say it's wrong, is that belief that it's wrong because that's a religious belief, or is that a personal, I mean, it's so complex. And that I think a lot of times being the mom, we're left with the baby in most instances. And so, what does that really look like? What does that mean? And what kind of support system do you have? And that we, ideal, we live in community and the village takes care of but that's not the truth for most of us, right? And to condemn you and say, oh my goodness, you had a baby at 14. Well, why didn't you get an abortion? Or, well, how could your mother have all the shaming, and blaming and criticizing? But we don't know your story. And it doesn't matter. Even if we did, it's still not our business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then here you could have said, oh, I had a baby at 14. I'll never have sex again. I mean, and then there you'd be with this baby that you had at 14. Or you can say, well, yeah, that's my life. That's a part of my life. And look at what beautiful things have happened for me because of that.
Yeah.
Or in spite of that.
Say what I want you to say.
I know, Mo.
I know, Mo. Okay, that was good. Thank you. Visit www.falolity.net. That's falolity.net for monthly updates on all things podcasts, books, as well as a weekly wellness blog and more.